Okay.
At number 2, the Lions. I love the roster. Again, the kicker situation worries me for a team with championship aspirations. They had a very good kicker. He tore his hamstring. Now they got a kid from the UFL. Shout out to him for making it.
Yeah.
But this guy played, I think, at Texas State and in the UFL. Now he's going to be kicking. Dan Campbell standing on the sideline, huffing and puffing, scary.
Go for two.
There's a lot of pressure on Jamo Williams, who was a great collegiate player but hasn't shown it. I like the Lions. I think they have a top 3 overall roster in the league. But I don't think they're going to be good enough to beat the Chicago Bears.
All right. Well, I just want to focus on the Lions here because I'm going to be doing a separate Bears video. Because for me, my prediction for this division is going to be between the Packers and the Lions. And so that's what I want to talk about more than anything. But this is going to be a more Lions-centered video. So, okay. Here's what it all comes down to me. I think the Lions do have a top 3 roster. And I think a lot of people are predicting the Lions can kind of take a step back, that it was more, I don't want to say a fluke, that's too strong of a word, but they just were able to kind of get some momentum and that some of their success last season was a little artificial. I, of course, do not believe that. But that is what a fair amount of people are kind of saying. It's like there's not a strong sense that people think that the Lions are for real. And I think that's absurd. And I think that's mainly because people don't believe in Jared Goff. Right? They don't see Jared Goff as been this sustained top-level quarterback, that he's had some good seasons, some average seasons, can kind of be good at moments, kind of bad at other moments, and so there's not a lot of confidence behind Jared Goff. But listen, when you have this roster, and especially when you have the offensive mind like Ben Johnson behind there, there's no reason why this team will even remotely slide backwards. None. In fact, there's only reason to believe that they're going to get better because they had some legitimate limitations, especially defensively, that they should have taken care of now. That should be taken care of. As well as offensively, they have such a young core, minus Jared Goff, who's not old, but he's just not as young as some of these other guys. They're all going to be getting better. They're all coming into their own. They're all essentially kind of entering their prime, so to speak, or just about. That is going to make them better. And when you still have the continuity of the offensive coordinator and Ben Johnson to be able to continue conducting this and leading this charge, there's zero reason to believe that they're going to backslide. And there's just only evidence that I see as why they'll move forward. Because again, I think their defense is going to be better, and therefore that's going to open up their offense tremendously. When we see a lot of these great teams, a few outliers of course exist, so much of it, their offense, when we get to see such a high-powered offense or a dominant offense, they have such a complementary defense that either allows them to easily have the lead, and so now they're able to pick apart the defense, in terms of the team that I'm talking about, their own offense. They're able to the opposing team's defense, or they get to rely on the time of possession is so heavily dominated, or they get to have so many extra possessions or better field position. Like so much field position is totally under talked about. I mean, when you have a great defense that can consistently get you good field position, it is a way to juice up those offensive stats and really put some points on the board. It is completely under discussed, and I'm not entirely sure why. And I'm not saying that's necessarily what the Lions defense is going to be able to consistently do. I mean, I have no idea. But I do think that when you have such a high-powered offense, right, and you take anything, even the slightest bit off of their plate, it allows them to be even more dominant, as counterintuitive as it might sound. You're just making things easier. And when you make things easier for someone who's already dominant, it's just, you just keep going up and up and up. Again, I think a great example of this, especially recently, has been Patrick Mahomes. You give Patrick Mahomes a great defense, he doesn't need to do much more offensively, because when you're only asking the bare minimum from Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be a grand slam. It's going to be easy. It's going to be cake. So I feel as though the Lions had so much more pressure on them offensively than they did defensively. And I think another great example of this is actually against the Packers. Or, I'm sorry, I go back. Against the Dallas Cowboys. Offensively, I think the Lions were way better than the Dallas Cowboys. And especially, I'm specifically thinking about that famous game where Dan Campbell kept going for it, right? And there was like the whole confusion with the ref and all of that. That game never needed to be that close in the first place. But there were some passes that, I mean, they were making Dak Prescott look like a Hall of Fame GOAT. He made a couple passes, and to CeeDee Lamb, if memory serves me correctly. That might have been the game where I think maybe CeeDee Lamb like broke the record for I forget, for yards, passing yards, whatever it may, or receiving yards for Dallas Cowboys specifically. I could be getting that mixed up, so I'm sorry. I'm not sure, because I feel like that might have been the game when they had like the whole ceremony for like some past players or coaches, but I could be getting that mixed up. But regardless, there were some plays where I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, my God, like what is going on with the Lions defensively? And now that's putting the pressure on the Lions. That's putting the pressure to say, we got to go for it. We got to keep going for it. And I know that's part of the Lions' DNA. I get it. And I'm not saying to completely remove that. But it's so much more ruthless when you go for it on fourth and down, or on fourth down, or you go for it on a 2-point conversion when you're kind of like already up by 10, when you're up by 14, when you're just going for the jugular. It's such a different experience. And I think that's the potential that the Lions have this year, is that if their defense can really hold their own, the offense can still continue to be aggressive, but it's going to be aggressive in such a different way, and a more dominant way, which is also very reminiscent to what the Eagles were able to do in 22 offensively, because their defense was so ruthless, because their defensive front, the pass rushing for the defense was so next level. They either had the record or right under the record for most sacks. It just allowed the offense to just be so much more aggressive in their own right, to dominate the time of possession, to take chances down the field, to go for it on fourth and down. It just opened everything up for them. And the Eagles obviously went to the Super Bowl and almost won. The Lions can have a similar path. If the defense can truly elevate, then the offense can be even more dynamic than it was last year. And if we go with that logic, that's scary. I mean, that's wild. That's like, how can you compete against that? And now what I will say, at risk of angering the Lions fans that I've probably just earned, is that the Packers definitely are a great team. I really do believe that. I understand some of the questions about, well, they were only good for X amount of games and they lost this player and that player. Will they be good? I think that they're going to be a great team. I really, really do. I think the Packers, the Lions, and the Bears will all make the playoffs. That's my prediction. And the way how it comes down to me between who will win the division, the Lions or the Packers, will come down to Jordan Love. If Jordan Love proves to truly be an elite top 3 quarterback in the NFL, which is what some people are predicting, I honestly have no idea, but let's say he is, then I think that'll be enough for the Packers to win that division, to maybe leapfrog the Lions. If not, if he ends up just being a really great quarterback, or just even continues a similar trajectory that he did last season, then I think that Lions team is just too stacked, has too deep, too many weapons. I just believe in everything they're doing, and then I believe that the Lions will then win the division. But doesn't mean that I think that they'll necessarily win over the Packers come time playoffs, because I think come time playoffs, I mean, we know this is the most consistent thing that ever happens in the NFL. Playoffs is just, it could be anyone's game. You just have no idea. And I'm like, I have anxiety thinking about some of these matchups in the future, because it's just like, I just will have no idea. It'll be just an absolute genuine coin flip. Who would have ever thought that the Lions and the 49ers game would have unfolded the way it did? And if you believe that it was going to be like, that's how it was going to unfold, you're lying, right? You just no way. So it's impossible to predict. So I think, though, the way how I can kind of make sense of it is, I look at it, I try to reduce it to the simplest way, to try to say, okay, if I had to make a decision based off of only one variable, what would it be? And that's where I'm just looking at Jordan Love as the ultimate question mark. Because I know who the Lions are going to be for the most part, at least offensively, right? Defensive is still a question, as I have addressed. And I know who Jared Goff is. And I'm a believer in Jared Goff. I am not one of those guys that hates on Jared Goff at all. But Jordan Love does have the potential to be a true bona fide top 3 quarterback in the NFL. There's a lot of people out there, especially on ESPN, saying that Jordan Love is the second best quarterback in the NFL. That it would go Mahomes, then Jordan Love. So if that ends up being true, and again, I'm not saying it is true, it's just if that ends up being true, then that will most definitely be enough to have the Packers win this division. So that's why I'm really excited to see how it unfolds, to see like who does Jordan Love ultimately end up being. And that's why I think the Lions are in a great position right now, because as the Packers potentially have to continue to figure that out and figure out maybe who Jordan Love is, the Lions are already established, could use that to their advantage and feast. And that's why I also think that they'll be able to take advantage of the Chicago Bears, because the Chicago Bears have to figure out how to win. And I think the Chicago Bears will be coming too, right? But it's like they have to learn how to win. They have to learn how to lose one week and then bounce back the next week. Like they have a ways to go, which is what the Packers had to do the year before, which is what the Lions had to do 2 years before. It's just the way it goes, right? None of these teams just immediately just hit the ground running and just skyrocket to just wild levels of success. It's always kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The Lions are ahead of that trajectory. That's why I lean Lions. But the way how you can expedite that is by having a transcendent next level quarterback. We'll see if Jordan Love ends up being that. If not, the Lions. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think the Lions will end up winning this division, or do you think it'll be the Packers? And I'll ask the question, do you think it'll be the Bears, in my next video, where I will talk exclusively about Nick's prediction that the Bears are not only going to win the division, but apparently go to the Super Bowl. Let me know your thoughts below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.